Hello, Mr. Brad. How are you?
Good. Good to see you.
You too.
Are you?
Happy Thursday.
Yeah, you too. Are you working today?
I am off today. Work the
Okay.
rest of the weekend. Yep.
Okay. Well,
hmm
it's great weather out there for you.
Oh my gosh. I know. I went to my most dangerous store and walked around Home Depot.
Oh, jeez.
They just jump right in my car. I can't help myself.
I hear you. Between plants and stuff that you want Chip to do, I'm sure it.
Well, no, that's Joyce do, but I
Yeah.
love the plants. I'm not
Yeah.
addicted to anything else but that. So
Yeah.
he's a lucky man, except for this time of year.
I hear you. Yeah, you're not alone. I think they have to stockpile the mulch and all sorts of, potting soil and all sorts of stuff because
Oh yeah.
it's this kind of
hmm
weather gets people out there.
Oh, it sure does. My
Gosh.
fingers are itching to get in the dirt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good, good.
There we go. I'm actually in my car and I break off about 12:30 or 1:30, but
Okay.
yeah,
No worries.
1:30.
Yeah, no
But
worries.
good to see you.
Yeah, likewise.
Huh.
Hey, everybody, we'll just give it another minute and then we'll go ahead and get started.
Hey, Brad, Lynn Hartley, quick question for you.
Yes, sir.
Anywhere in your bag of tricks or in MLS, does anybody provide a free opportunity to have a website?
Yes. Yeah, your the board does. The board gives you one. So if you sign into your account in the MLS. So go into the MLS and probably in the upper right-hand corner will be your account information. If you go to something like My Info or maybe Settings, you'll see um, six or seven other tabs, and one of which is your dedicated website. It's kind of rough around the edges. I mean, it doesn't look, you know, like Zillow,
Sure.
but it is a separate URL, and people can search for homes, and um, it's a good free option.
Okay, I'll check it out. Thanks.
Okay. Yep. All right, let's go ahead and get started. Thanks so much for hopping on, and that really means a lot because the weather's gorgeous out there. So I'm sure you'd much rather be out there than than on a call with me. So I appreciate your attention. So today I wanted to follow up from a training session I did a couple of weeks ago on the buyer process. And now address the selling side or listing process. Um, I did a version of this about maybe 2 months ago, but what I left out was what happens after you get the actual listing. So I'm going to go into that today as well. So this is, in my humble opinion, the various steps in the listing process. So any of you that have something different or want to add some color to what I'm presenting, by all means, please unmute and chime in because I don't have all the answers. So let's take these one at a time. So the pre-listing interview is really going to be where you're going to set the tone with your client. This is where you present the IABS because this, in my opinion, is the first meaningful substantive conversation that you'll have. So Texas, it's IABS. In the other two states that I'm in, it's a broker service disclosure, a broker service agreement. Okay. So um, this can look a couple of different ways. This can be the first kind of, it can be a phone call, it can be the first kind of casual meeting before you kind of go on to the next set of steps. It could be this is it. The person wants to meet you at their home. They want to give you the, nickel tour. So kind of bear with me with regards to where these kind of fit in. By no means am I suggesting you create a second step if you don't have to. But in my mind, this is a phone call, a casual conversation about the likelihood of you listing their home. So this is where you would want to go through the various questions on where they're at mindset wise. Now, we have a questionnaire on our website under the buy, sell, lease tab. And that's going to be found under this listing presentation. It's a zipped file, and in that is a questionnaire. So, you're going to want to ask them about things like how old is the home? When are you thinking of moving? Why are you moving? Just general things about that. There'll be time to get into the specifics about the actual home later. All right. Now, remember that um, as the annual survey tells us from Texas Realtors, uh, both listing clients and buyer clients do not talk to a whole lot of realtors before they decide to work with them. All right. Now, listings may be a little bit different. They might be interviewing one or two more, but by and large, they don't want to, this is a pain for them. They want to make sure that you're going to be able to sell the home, and they don't want to interview a bunch of people. All right. So you have that going for you, even if this is your first day on the job. All right. So in this step, you're going to set an appointment to go tour the home and have a little bit more formal discussion about what their needs are, and you're going to, present how you can help them. All right. And then you want to tell them that you're going to drop off a pre-listing packet. So I'm going to show you what that is in a second. But I think that this is important. I think that this adds a level of professionalism to the process. Because I think too many agents want to get in there and it's, fire ready aim versus ready aim fire. Because let's be brutally honest here. You have no idea whether or not you can help them, and you don't have any idea of whether you want to help them. All right. And I'll get into what I mean about that in a second. But you're going to tell them that you're going to drop off a pre-listing packet. All right. And so what does that look like? Well, it's going to include, and as I mentioned on the earlier version of this presentation, do yourself a favor and get yourself some logoed, nice, professional looking folders. I have mine that are white, and I have our logo on it, and it just makes it look more professional. All right. And the reason I mention all this is because I know this might seem like a minor step, but you'd be amazed at how few agents are doing this. They'll show up with a stack of papers, paper clipped together, and think that they deserve the listing. Okay, so make sure that you present yourself as if you were the customer yourself. All right, so in this, you're going to include your one-page resume, um, the RPR report on their specific property. So why is this important? Because they have no doubt gone to Zillow and gotten probably an inaccurate assessment of what their home's worth. What I like about the RPR report is that it not only nails down what it could sell for now, but it gives you a range. Okay. So I like that. And they need to see that because, um, you need to soften that blow if they think that they're going to list their home for $50,000 above what it should be. All right. Your marketing plan. So we have one of these in case you don't. So let's just go to it. And under the buyer, seller, lease tab, which I mentioned earlier, Here are the presentations that I've already done for you. All right. And this is our marketing plan. It's in a PDF format. Don't go cheap, print it in color. Okay. There are 30 things on here. Now, you by no means have to do all 30 things. Okay. So it's going to really depend on what you work out with your client. Okay. This is also where you would go for the video series, which I'll mention a little bit later. But remember that I've done a video series on this entire process. So as I've said before, a lot of my training is really designed for you just moved here and it's your first day on the job. You know nothing about real estate. Okay, so it's all right here for you. All right, so um, that's the marketing plan in case you don't have one. It's going to include marketing examples. So on your onboarding checklist, when you all joined, one of the tasks was to join Breakthrough Broker. And Breakthrough Broker is both a free and fee-based marketing portal. And you can create various things on there for real estate. But that's not the only place you can do this. There are samples on our own website that you can just use as marketing flyers. Title companies will do this for you. Lending companies will do this for you. And if you really want to up your game, I would get Canva, which is a very easy, of course, easy for me to say because I use it all the time, but I think it's easy to use. It's a really good marketing program. They have, you can build any kind of marketing in there you want. And in my mind, I'm thinking flyers, and they have real estate flyers in there. And so, what I would do is if you can, which would set you apart, is at least get one outside shot, maybe on your cell phone, of the home and use this in your marketing examples because this will then connect your client to what you're going to present for them. All right. Listing agreement, IABS for them to sign. Um, and then you could argue that you might want to include in there a copy of the 1-to-4 family residential contract, the purchase agreement, because they're going to have to see this and agree to it at some point. All right. So as I've mentioned before, the reason why this is important is because you're not going to go over all of this unless they want to. It's a good illustration of who you are as an agent, and it's a great thing to leave behind so that if they are interviewing other agents, they're going to forget a lot of probably what you spoke about. But if they have something to refer back to, well, that increases your odds of getting hired. All right. That's why the one-page resume is so important. Okay. So you don't necessarily need to hand this to them. Um, I would almost suggest you don't do that. Don't inconvenience them too much. Just drop it off on their doorstep. Text them when you've done that so that they can be prepared when you actually show up to have a longer discussion. All right. And so that's what we're on to next. So this is the walkthrough. So, you're going to sit down first and you're not going to just launch into the tour. You're going to continue to build rapport. You might review what you've already talked about already. And, say things like, okay, well, when we first spoke, you mentioned your timeline was this. The reason you're moving is this. Um, you've had the home for 15 years. You've done a couple of upgrades. Let's talk a little bit further about that. All right, so this this is an important step in this discussion because let's face it, I think a lot of us talk to these clients and we just take their word for whatever they're saying. So this is the point in the discussion that I call qualify the sellers, which could mean do are both, let's say it's a husband and wife, or both names on the deed. It doesn't matter, by the way, in the state of Texas. They both have to sign. Are both of them here? If one of them's not here, they're going to have to sign this paperwork. So am I going to have to do this presentation all over again? Um, can they legally convey the home? All right. Did they stop making mortgage payments 6 months ago? Because that could be a deal breaker. Right? You want to have those questions answered. Um, and then have they ever sold a home before? And what was that like? And the answer is probably yes, but it's probably been 10 to 15 years. But you want to get from them what that experience was because that will create the framework for their expectations of you and kind of tee up how you can exceed those. But um, but these are kind of this is kind of the spot where you want to get very specific and make darn sure that if we get any further down this road and a buyer comes forward, that there aren't any skeletons in the closet, i.e. bankruptcy, i.e. tax liens, i.e. I tried to get out of an ADT contract and they put a lien on my house. I mean, all that stuff has to be brought to the surface before you can really move forward. All right, then you're going to qualify the house. All right, so in the seller's opinion, are there any repairs or updates that are planned? Um, and that will give you a good sense of what it is that we're actually selling, which is the next slide. But if they know that, my gosh, and this is all too common, people buy a home and they just move in and start living there. And all of a sudden, 20 years goes by and you realize that they've not updated anything. All right. And that's tough because they're used to what they're living in. All right. So you as the realtor, it's your job to tell them, well, Formica countertops might not be the way to go. They've updated those since 15 years ago. But you want to get from them, um, are there any plans to do that? Is everything in working order? Now, they're going to fill out a seller's disclosure, but if they've been thinking about selling their home, they are keeping in the back of their mind, oh yeah, you know what, I got to get that driveway fixed. It's got like 17 cracks down the middle of it. That's not going to be good. So this is the time where you want to talk about that. All right, and then just directly ask them any feedback on the pre-listing packet. What are your questions? And they may and ask it just like that. They may not have any questions about the packet, but they may have a ton of questions that they've been dying to ask you about the process. So let them ask them uh, so that we can kind of clear up any hurdles early. Okay. So the next step is, well, what is it that we're selling? All right. Do you want to sell it in present conditions, or are you willing to make some improvements because how it's priced is going to impact that? And this will likely be the spot where they say, well, my neighbor across the street was able to get X for his home, and I was hoping to get that. And, this may be, it may not be the time where you interject, well, yeah, it's all about the condition of the home. So if they got a certain price, I'd be interested to see what the updates were. All right. So let them tell you because some people will say, I don't care what I list it for. I need to be in XYZ destination and I just want it gone. Um, and I don't have any appetite to have painters and electricians and plumbers at my house. All right. And so then, as I've said before, this is the point in the conversation where you just say, look, um, before we go any further, I need to just kind of clear the air because I've done a lot of these. Do you want me to tell you what you want to hear or what you should hear? And everyone's going to say what I should hear, right? Um, and so you may have to refer back to this question if, the going gets tough. All right. And then you'd be surprised. You might want to ask them if they have any other properties they need to sell and how you can help with that. Don't assume that they just own this one property. They may have rentals. If they're leaving the area and going out of state, but all of their rental properties are here, who better to help them with that? right? You don't want them to say, well, um, I want to see how you do on this one, and I have a couple of others. You want to get in front of that and assure them that you can handle all those properties for them. All right, and ask them or interject at some point that, look, um, my job isn't easy, but it is simple. Because what sells a home is how it's priced, its condition, and its exposure. And oh, by the way, you and I, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, control all three of these. So it's my job to increase the odds of you getting this home sold. And the good news is we can control all three of these things. What we can control are things like interest rates in the market and how many homes are, for sale that are just like yours. Can't control that. But the good news is we can all put our heads together and fix these three things. All right, so then it's time to talk about timeline. All right, so when can the home be ready? So this would be a result of the prior conversations with regards to, are you doing any repairs? Are you doing any upgrades? Um, I mean, it's going to be rare that the homeowner isn't going to at least need to declutter. So those are kind of the conversations that you need to have. So timeline, when is this going to be ready? All right. And it's up to you to explain how long it takes to stage and photograph and get all this stuff done. And because if they've lived there for any degree of time, it's usually it usually takes longer than they think to just declutter, right? And so your job is to prevent them from feeling overwhelmed so that they just get paralyzed and don't do anything, right? But I'm guessing they have no idea how long it takes to get a home ready, right? So that's up to you to have that conversation. Ask them, uh, what if this home sells in the first week? Are you prepared to move within 30 days? All right, so you can talk about the lease back conversation and really get down to brass tacks about what their timeline really is, right? Because even though inventory has been increasing in the past several months, um, homes are still selling at a pretty good clip, and they need to be prepared because you don't know what their mindset is. For all you know, they're thinking, yeah, we'll put it on the market and, this will happen in the next 60 days or so. Maybe not. And ask them what is the one thing you need to solve regarding this timeline. So is it I got to get a plumber in here? I know that the roof needs to be replaced. I've got all these knickknacks. I've got to tear down this wallpaper. Like what is it? And that gives you an idea of what their level of urgency is as well. All right. So the next step is to talk about marketing and pricing. And this is where you would hope that they're going to envision themselves working with you. So this is kind of your dog and pony show. Um, I always try and read the client with regards to how much they want to delve into this, because most people have a general sense of um, what a realtor is going to do. They're really interested in the price. Okay. But because there are so many of us, you do want to stand out. So it's worth talking through a little bit of this based on the client's desire to do that, right? So show them your samples that hopefully have pictures of their house in it. Detail what you're going to do for them specifically. All right. And so again, much of that's going to be outlined on that 30-point plan in the marketing plan. All right. But it's got to be more than put it in the MLS and put a sign in the yard. All right. So in my mind, it's open houses, it's reverse prospecting, it's we have agents across 3 states. Let me get this into their hands. It's that kind of thing. Okay. And believe me, what a seller thinks you should be doing for them may not literally sell the home. I'm thinking of open houses, but it's a good thing to do because it demonstrates that you're out there working for them. All right. So don't be afraid to take their advice. All right. So you're going to discuss the RPR report with them. And I would bring with you now your ace in the hole, which is going to be a CMA that you've just done, right? Either that day or the day before. And you don't want to go back more than 6 months if you don't have to. You want to keep it within a quarter to a half a mile if you can. Um, and you want to pick some really good comps. All right. Now, mind you, you want to try and connect the dots between what RPR thinks it's worth and what this CMA thinks it's worth, right? And you're going to talk to them about not only price, but how many other homes are on the market. Right? It's often that I get asked advice about uh, a home that an agent within the office wants to put on the market, and they ask me my opinion on price. And depending on how many other homes are available that a buyer can choose from, is going to determine what you're going to price it at. And I'll talk about that in a second. But it's not just about what the seller needs to get or what their neighbor got. It is very, very specific. All right. And so you're going to want to explain to them the principle of substitution. So what is this? This means that, hey, if we decide to work together and we put your home on the market today, these are the other choices in the market that a buyer could choose from. And out of these five, let's say, these two are really, really close to yours, right? So let's say they're both two-story. The primary bedroom's downstairs. It's roughly the same square footage, roughly the same updates. Everything is pretty much the same. This is the key to everyone involved to price it accordingly. Because if someone has a choice of two other homes, they're going to choose the one that is least expensive, okay, or the best value. So, hey, if the other two don't have a pool and yours has a pool, okay, but people can talk themselves in and out of a pool real quick. So it goes back to that timeline discussion about, pricing it correctly in order for you to get to your next destination as quickly as possible. All right, but this is really, really important. This begins putting them mindset wise in the shoes of a buyer. All right, and again, what you can and can't control, you're going to want to delve into that. So we can control price, exposure, condition. We can't control interest rates, price of somebody else's home, market dynamics, stock market crash, unemployment. Can't control any of that. We just have to do the best we can with the data that we have. All right. And then ask them, do you feel comfortable in my ability to sell your home? And be prepared for them to hesitate and tell them why they may not. All right. So you'll notice here that nowhere do I ever tell you that you should say that you don't deserve the listing. I'm a brand new agent. I've never done this before. Man, if this was your first day on the job and you did everything that I just mentioned, and you came with a sense of urgency and a sense of confidence, I'd hire you all day long. And so it does not matter if this is the first day doing this. You can absolutely do this, and you can acquire clients just by being organized. All right. So then you're going to want to kind of transition into getting them to think like a buyer. So ask them, what do you think, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, would appeal to a buyer about your house? Because it's always one thing, right? If any of y'all own a home, then undoubtedly there was one aspect of the home that sold it for you, and everything else just didn't matter. So ask them what that is. Ask them to tell you what they like and what they don't like about their home. All right, so this is giving you ammunition on how to market it. and ask them if you could change one thing about your home, what would it be? And this is designed to reveal things like, yeah, you know what? I bought this house 15 years ago because it was the only one on the market that fit our budget. I really don't like the fact that all the bedrooms are upstairs. Well, you can't do a thing about that, right? So you're just going to need to file that away as something that you might get feedback on, right? Um, but let them tell you, what would that be? And heck, maybe you can change it. Maybe it's about something that needs updating, but you need to have them talk and you listen. Uh, how might a buyer compare your home to others on the market right now? So this is where you might offer to take them to other open houses, or you might pop up the MLS and show them what their neighbor's home looks like. And it's not going to be unlikely that they do bring up the fact that their neighbor's home just sold for X amount and they want that amount. Well, pop open the MLS. Chances are those pictures are still there. And you need to get in front of that conversation, right? Because it may be apples to oranges. Talk about the first 2 weeks in the mind of a buyer. So, what does this look like? Well, before their home even goes on the market, there are buyers out there right now that have hired a realtor, and that realtor has put them on uh, an email feed that is sending them homes that meet their criteria. And every time a home comes on that meets their criteria, they get a ding in their email box. Well, when your home comes on the market, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, that same thing's going to happen, maybe, right? So the first 2 weeks in a listing are critical, critical, critical. It's when you want to enter the market with a splash, right? It's your red carpet moment. Because you can't put the toothpaste back in the tube if you've made a mistake. And I'm really talking about price. All right. So once the first 2 weeks have come and gone, every buyer's seen that home. They've been to an open house and the novelty has worn off. And so it doesn't do a seller any good to test the market, start with a high price, thinking that they can decrease it and they're going to get the same results because they're not. Right. So a much, much, much better tactic is to start a little bit lower than what everything else sold for and create a ton of interest, right? And have people bid up the price or start right where everything else is pretty much sold at. Either tactic works. All right. And then again, just reinforce the the what the result will be if they start with a high price and decrease over time. Right. And then you're going to want to talk about what the recent trend is with regards to what the list price was for a house in this market and what they actually sold for. Because for months now, it's been about 95 to 96%. Right. So they need to be aware of what they're likely going to walk away with. And I would do a net seller sheet with three different price points. You know, what they want, kind of middle, and then my drop dead. Here's what I'll take for it. I don't want to, but I will type of deal. All right. So remember that the seller is the one that has to set the price and agree to the price. But why would they be hiring us if we didn't offer advice and opinion and guidance on what's going to get this home to sell? Okay, so because remember, they say that it's about price, but anybody that puts their home on the market is working with some kind of timeline that they have to meet. And at some point, price becomes uh, it takes a back seat to I need to just get out of here type of deal, right? All right, so all this is to say that let's lead them to the right price. All right, then you got to get buy-in. All right. Do we all agree on the timeline? In other words, you told me that you're going to do some repairs. That's going to take 2 weeks. Okay. Um, and you need to be out of here in the next 90 days. So I need to do my job as a realtor to make sure that we get you there. Um, and so are we okay with coming back and starting this 2 weeks from now? Do we agree on the price? Do we agree on my approach? Is there anything that you want to suggest I do that would maybe fit the uniqueness of your home? All right. Do we agree on how we're going to communicate with each other? Does that mean I'm going to be available till 11 o'clock at night? Does that mean that you only want to be communicated to through text? What does that look like? All right. Do we agree on payment? All right. So whatever I'm charging, are you okay with that? And how do you want that to be paid? Do you want to pay me one lump sum and then I pay a buyer's agent? Do you want to pay the buyer's broker? What does that look like? And you will need to have had those conversations about um, how the commission structure works. And because that house is going to sit there if you know some kind of financial contribution is not made from the seller. All right. And so with that, that's probably a great segue into this is now the fork in the road for you guys because you may decide based on what's been talked about so far, this guy ain't on the same page. Price is out of left field. He thinks you need to pay a buyer's commission. He doesn't want to do any repairs, but man, he wants top dollar. You are setting yourself up for failure and you're setting yourself up for an extremely high maintenance client, someone that you're never going to satisfy. So now is the time to say, uh, you know, for these reasons, like the Shark Tank, for these reasons, I'm out. You don't want to pay your buyer's agent's commission. You don't want to do any repairs. You want top dollar, which is 80,000 above what anything else has ever sold here. I can't do this for you. I'm not the right person. If I told you I was going to be able to do this, I'd be doing you a disservice, and that goes against my code of ethics from the National Association of Realtors and what the commission requires of me. I think you're going to have to find somebody else. And you're going to be glad you did that. Uh, and some of them might lead you to do that. But do not think just because you don't have any other prospects that you need to take a problem child because it will drain your energy and drain your time. All right, enough on that. Closing technique. So here are 5 or 6 different ways after everything that's been said and done, you can close the sale. So you could say something like, okay, great. So once you have agreement on all those things, let's say that you do want to work with this person. You say, great. Well, if you want to sign the listing agreement now, I can get started on all of this right away. I like that closing technique because it instills a level of urgency and it kind of glosses over the formality of signing the listing agreement. You could say, I am confident that we can get your home sold quickly and for top dollar. Now, here's the deal. I think you should have said this anyway, because that instills confidence in them, and you need to hear it from you. You need to hear yourself say, I can sell this home and I can sell it quickly and for top dollar. So this is your chance to reiterate this. When would be a good time for us to get the paperwork started? Now, he's got it in front of him. So no better time than the present. You could say something like, I'd love the opportunity to represent you and show you what I can do. Are you ready to move forward and list your home today? All right. And at that point, they might say, I like what I hear, but I've got some other appointments with other realtors that I want to honor. And something that has worked for me is I've gotten that response and I've said, well, I'll tell you what, if you tell me who they are, I will call them. And after you've signed the listing agreement and tell them that you are now officially represented and they don't need to come by. right? And they cannot come by. They cannot honor their appointment if they are now represented by somebody else. All right. And I did just that. Right. So you might give that a try. Another one might be everything we've talked about aligns with your goals. Shall we take the next step and get your home on the market? All right. I like that one. Uh, Based on what you've shared, I believe I'm the right fit to help you sell. Would you like me to prepare the listing agreement now? Because it's ready for you to sign if you're ready to move forward. All right, so I like that one. And then the last one, let's make this process as smooth and successful as possible. Are you ready to get started with me as your agent? All right, so each of these, I think, address subliminally um, an issue that every seller has, but it instills a sense of urgency, but it's still kind of what I would characterize as a softer close, right? Which is again, that's what I'm all about. I don't, I would never say to a client, well, I don't know why you'd want to interview anybody else. As you can see, I'm the perfect agent for the job. Let's get going. I wouldn't do that. So if you want to, frame it up differently, go for it. But I think that no one wants to be pressured. So that's why these are the way they are. All right, so here are some tips. Um, be prepared to have them ask you, why should I be hiring you? Right. And that's hard because in my mind, I'm getting there, but I'm getting there through a structured presentation, but they may hit you with this early on. So I always say your response should be, well, I do things better. My sign is better. It's got a QR code. My listing is better because the description is like, a Shakespearean play. People will want to come see this because of how I written the description. My pictures, better than anybody else's, right? So you're selling better. And you have to do it that way because there are so many of us. And so few realtors articulate it that way or even have an answer to what are the top four reasons why I should hire you. Because my neighbor's a realtor and he's been chomping at the bit trying to list this home for me for 10 years. Why should I hire you? I don't even know you. I know my neighbor. I do it better. Don't know your neighbor, but my pictures are better, my description's better, I'm better. And I've got a presentation that's going to walk you through all that. Let's sit down and talk about that. Create a sense of urgency so that if they don't act quickly, they're going to miss out. Now you got to temper this with giving them the hard sales pitch, but um, especially this time of year, they are going to miss out. If they wait until August, they're going to miss out, right? And then create a sense that if they don't hire you, they're going to miss out on better, right? Whoever they choose will not do it as well as you can. As I've always suggested, ask a lot of questions so that they self-discover, what an asset that you're going to be to them. They can self-discover maybe what updating they do need to do in their home. Some people just want to be told what to do, and that's fine. But I'm sure you'll all agree that when it comes to a seller, it's always better if it's their idea. Am I right? So resist the urge to just vomit your opinions onto them. Uh, be prepared to walk away. You aren't meant to work with every single client because, the minute that I sense that things are getting difficult, um, I have over time had a little voice pop into my head and it says, shouldn't be this hard. Shouldn't be this hard. You either want to work with me or you don't. Do you know what a realtor does for you? We provide opinions, advice, and expertise. Why are you making this so difficult? And this is really a good tip for expired listings because you don't want every one of them. You want people that defer to your expertise, uh, um, defer to your advice, and are willing to work with you. and don't want to fight you on every point. Because if it's that bad at this stage of the transaction, it's only going to get worse. All right, do yourself a favor. All right, and then again, lastly, uh, go to the buy, sell, lease tab and look at the videos that I have for the listing process. Okay, so this is typically where it would stop. Um, you know, hooray, we've gotten the listing. We're going to put a sign in the yard soon. But what happens next? Right? What happens next? And I wrote down, keep me in check because this is the time where I want you all to remind me if I've forgotten anything. Okay, so um, you are going to need to coordinate and determine a timeline for repairs, along with decluttering and staging. So if either you or the client are at a loss for what their home should look like, it should look like the model home of a new construction home. That's what it should look like, right? Lived in yet decluttered, staged, right? No personal items. That's the way it should look. Um, so you need to be careful about this because the date on the listing agreement goes into the MLS. It says what date was the listing agreement signed, right? And that's their check on, well, how long did you let go before you put it into the MLS? So it is very common to post date these things, right? So if they need to do stuff um, and it takes 2 weeks, well, then the listing agreement doesn't start for 2 weeks. Okay, so this is why it's important to coordinate what needs to be done. Okay, so if you do not have in your possession a yard sign or a lockbox, you need to go get them. So, um, on our website, under onboarding resources, there are some yard sign examples, and then there are hyperlinks to companies that you can get a yard sign from. Our logos, and I let you design them however you want. Um, we just have to remember that if you're in Texas, then the brokerage name has to be on there somewhere, and that's the only requirement. But our logos are right here if you want to use them to upload. Okay, so how long does it take to get a yard sign? With any one of those guys, it's going to take about 7 to 10 days. So be mindful of when you need it. And between the actual sign panel, which is the insert, and the frame, it's about $100. You can get them a little bit cheaper if you buy them like three at a time. Uh, but that's how much they are. Lock boxes. Um, don't go cheap and go to Home Depot and get one for $30. And there's several reasons why that is. One is that it creates risk for you and for me and the seller because that code now has to be given through the showing service or through the listing itself, and it's just too risky that anybody can get their hands on that lockbox code. All right, the other thing is that it makes you look unprofessional. All right, so if you want to be a realtor and you're serious about listing a home, I mean, you're about to get a $12,000 windfall. Spend 125 bucks and get an electronic lockbox that only a realtor can get into. Okay? Don't go cheap. All right, so then you're going to want to think about coming soon. So listen, some of our cities don't allow a coming soon status. So if you're tuning in from Austin, doesn't apply to you. They don't have that. But if you are in a city whose MLS allows you to do a coming soon, this is what I'm talking about. So, but coming soon is a status in the MLSs that allow it. That is considered marketing. So even though the listing agreement was just signed, you can't put a sign in the yard unless you fully intend to enter it into the MLS within 24 hours. All right. So even if it's coming soon. So listing agreement signed, both of you agree to put it into coming soon status. You have a coming soon rider. You can put that in the yard, but you have to put it in coming soon status in the MLS. Here's what I don't like about that. Usually the pictures haven't been done yet. And that's just not a real professional thing to have out there. Okay. But I'll leave it up to you and the seller. But just be mindful that that's marketing. So is sending it to your database. So is posting it on Facebook. You can't do any of that um, uh, until it's allowed. Right. So you got 24 hours between the time you start marketing it to getting it into the MLS. All right, now it comes time to schedule photography. Well, think about this logically. If they haven't decluttered or they haven't fixed their landscaping and it's not picture ready, you can't schedule the photographer, right? I mean, there might be animals to consider, how to get out of there during the session, kids, somebody works from home, whatever. Um, and if you're wondering who pays for this, normally you do. The good news is it's only about 125 bucks. So you do not want to take pictures on your cell phone. It doesn't represent you, the brokerage, or the seller well at all. And all that presentation that you just did about how great you are and how much better you are is going to go out the window if you uh, take these pictures on your cell phone. Because undoubtedly, there's going to be a tube of toothpaste on the bathroom counter that you forgot to move, and now that goes out worldwide. All right. But a professional photographer is not going to let that happen. All right. Uh, Now's the time that you're going to want to create all of your marketing material, right? Flyers for open houses, a flyer for when someone comes in to see it. If it's a higher end home, maybe you're putting together a bound presentation with seller's disclosure, survey, list of upgrades, more photographs, flyers, whatever. Now is the time to do that. This is the prep phase. All right. And then this is the time to simultaneously get from the seller a survey if one exists, because that's going to dictate how you list it. It either has one or it doesn't. And if it doesn't, who's paying for it? Because the title company is going to need it. So you want to get their survey, the completed seller's disclosure, which means completed, signed, and initialed, and a T47 and a list of upgrades if there are any. T47 or T47.1 is just a sworn statement or a notarized affidavit that says, here's my survey, and it hasn't changed. All right. But if they've been living in that home for 15 years or more, 10 years or more, there's a good chance that that survey has changed. All right. So um, just be mindful of that. You might have to talk them through that process. All right. Ensure that you have an account with your local showing service and determine how the showings will be handled with the seller. So it is not unusual for on your first listing, even though it's on my onboarding checklist to sign up for the showing service, to not remember that you did that. The showing service you're already paying for, by the way, and it interfaces with the MLS, which will then pick up your listing within the day, and you can then go in and configure how you want things to work. So I think the lock boxes, the electronic ones, are active from 8 to 8. So if you only want showings between noon and 5, that's where you would specify it. If the seller works nights and sleeps days, and you're going to want to specify that there. This is where you would set up who gets notified when a showing has been scheduled, and does anybody have to approve it. If it's a vacant house, it's what they call a go and show. No one has to approve it. They just literally go and show it. But anything less than that, you're going to have to talk over with the seller and how you want that to work. All right. And then, is that it? That's not it. All right. Use the MLS data input form. I'm going to go over this in a second. And then start entering the listing into the MLS. All right. And be sure to write out a good description and driving directions. Please do not say use GPS. Some MLSs won't even accept that anymore. You got to write out the directions. All right. And then your sign goes in the yard, lockbox goes on the door with the key inside. And ideally, if you can, I'd go live on a Thursday so that people start making appointments Friday, Saturday, Sunday. With any luck, you can have it sold on Sunday. And then schedule your first open house or get somebody to do it. And this is where I go back to the first 2 weeks. All right. You're going to get a ton of traffic the first 2 to 3 weekends of a brand new listing, assuming it hasn't sold. And if I were you, if I wanted buyer clients, I'd be doing them myself, right? For obvious reasons. And I mean, not only are you going to pick up buyer clients, but you're going to be the expert resource to be able to talk about that home. All right. So out of all this, have I missed anything? You'll have to unmute if you have anything to say. All right, pretty comprehensive list. So you may be now realizing the difference in workload between representing a seller versus representing a buyer. Um, the workload for a listing all happens up front. Because what I didn't put on there is the last step is you sit back and wait for the offers. And there's not a whole lot to do after that, right? Because the heavy lifting at that point is up to the buyer. And so versus handling a buyer client where all the heavy lifting and your value really comes in once they find a home, you know? So listings are great, but there's a lot of work that needs to be done up front. So just to wrap up on the actual inputting of the listing, um, each MLS has their own data input form. This is just the one that exists for North Texas. HAR has one, Austin has one, San Antonio has one. They all have one. And there's a reason. Um, there is no way you, as the listing agent, will know all there is to know about that home. However, if we are to serve our client well, we need to be able to check as many of these boxes as possible. Now, this is a 22-page document. So at some point, maybe when you go back to collect the seller's disclosure and survey, you sit down with the seller and say, okay, I'm about to input this listing into the MLS. Not only do I need to do this right, I need your buy-in that all this is correct. And I'm going to tell you why. If you remember nothing else about this presentation today, remember this. If you don't do this and you just wing it and you say, oh, well, I think the shingles are, I think the roof is composition, but I'm not sure, that is blatant misrepresentation. And that means license revocation and a lot of fines. All right. And so I didn't know is not an excuse here because someone knew and that person's the seller. So this is why this form is so important. This is the manual version of inputting it into the MLS. And for the most part, it's all in order. So it makes your job really easy. So you're going to go through here and you're going to ask the seller. And here's what I would do. I would take a pass at this and fill in what you absolutely do know. It's going to be about 30%, by the way. The other 70%, you're going to have to sit down with him and her and figure out what it is. And oh, by the way, You're going to have to measure every room. I mean, you don't want to get the school district wrong, right? So you have to measure every room and tell people what the various features are of all those rooms and everything in between. Okay, does it face a green space? Does it how what is the system by which they get their HVAC? Is it electrical AC or I'm sure it is. Is it a gas furnace or electric furnace? I mean, how would you know that? And if the seller doesn't know, they've got to know. That's a takeaway for them to get done. Okay, so for the sake of time, I'm gonna show you real quick what this looks like. Now, don't worry because in my mind, easy for me to say, I think it's self-explanatory. When I got licensed in 2011, the MLS didn't even look this good, right? So if you all think this is horrible technology, don't know if I disagree with you, but it used to be a lot worse. So this is North Texas's MLS. If you are calling in from San Antonio or El Paso, it's going to look different. Everywhere else, it's the same system. So let's just pop up one. Uh, let's go to Monique because she had this as an open house for people in DFW. So it's not going to look exactly like this when you first start to enter stuff. It will once you click submit. But think about this, right? And then here we are about to enter it. All you're going to do is go from left to right and start filling in these tabs. And where the field is darker, that's a requirement. Okay, that's the requirement. All these other things are extras, but you want to make sure that you give as much detail as you possibly can. All right, so here is the general property information. Now, if this is not a new construction home, you can port all the tax information over from the taxing authority. I'm not going to demonstrate that today, but some of this stuff like the lot and block that comes over, all right, from the taxing authority. Location in schools, all right, a big deal. Why? This is probably the single most common reason people choose a home close to a certain school district. All the room configuration. Now, if you were just doing this, it would only have the one here. Because there's 4 bedrooms and 2 full baths and all this other living space. She added all these. All right. And then, okay, so in the utility room, she checked built-in cabinets. I mean, anything you could possibly think of is here. Don't shortcut this. You're doing your seller a disservice. The various features, right? There's a ton of stuff here. All this is going to come over from the taxing authority, but type of fence, kind of soil, vegetation, are there restrictions, all that, utilities. People want to know, is it an electric furnace? Because that's very expensive, by the way, if it's not gas. You never know what buyers are searching for. They could say, well, a deal breaker for me is I got to have a gas furnace. And the agent's going to pull up all the ones with a gas furnace. Well, if you haven't checked that, it's not going to come up. All right. What kind of loan you're going to accept? If it's an older home, you might not want to accept an FHA or a VA. I'm not going to go into why that is, but that's where you put that HOA information, showing information, right? So you're going to put down who the showing service is, what the showing instructions are. Maybe you put in, make sure you lock all the doors. Maybe there's a cat in the back bedroom. Don't let it out. That type of deal. Um, Remarks. Okay, I didn't know this before I went in here, so thank God. Driving directions. Monique did not put in just see GPS. All right, private remarks are only those for us realtors. I'd be very careful of what you put there, but You can't put compensation, of course, anymore. And then if it's a condo, you have condo information, farm and ranch, and so on. And then once you go to submit, if you missed anything, it will tell you. So you kind of can't screw this up. What you can do is leave stuff out that you should have put in there. Now, if you leave stuff out that's required, you'll see a bunch of red exclamation points over the tabs that you missed stuff. And once you go in there, it'll put it next to the field that you missed. Okay. So, so that's what it looks like. If you want my opinion, I mean, it's not that difficult to fill in the blanks here. It's a lot easier if you do this form. A lot easier. All right. And then if you want my opinion, I would have the seller sign this and upload that in the back agent so that we have it as proof that what's out there they see. Because the minute you tell them, oh, your listing's live, where are they going to go? Zillow. Well, can you tell people that the bedroom's just been remodeled, or and if they had seen it in print, they would have seen it in print, right? So it's just, listen, guys, what I took you through today is the right way to do it. Anything less than what I showed you today, you're opening yourself up for criticism, risk, and a lawsuit. And I know I covered a lot, but this, in my opinion, is the bare minimum. If you want to go above and beyond this, go for it. If you want to do drones and videos, go for it. But what I showed you today has to be the minimum. All right. So I know we're over. Any questions? Any comments?
Hey, Brad, it's
Yeah.
Monique. That
Hey.
was that was good stuff. I just wanted to say that. And no matter what time or how long we've been in the business, there's always something new to learn. That's just what I think. So I just learned a whole lot of new stuff and still need to step it up. So I appreciate you. This was a good refresher and new stuff for me. I do have one question about the survey and the T47.
Yep.
And I was trying to pull up a contract to look at it. Is there something new in the contract? I think that somebody from
Yeah.
title. Okay, so we don't have to have a separate T47 anymore.
Yes and no. So before, like 4 months ago, our only option was to have a T47 sworn affidavit, had to be notarized. The survey hasn't changed. Now you can just have a what they call a declaration
Mhm,
that does not have to be notarized.
mhm,
That is just kind of a lesser version on behalf of the seller that says the survey hasn't changed. So, because to get something notarized is a bit of a pain,
mhm.
um, and the notary is not going to be able to verify whether it's factual or not. So, I think that's why the Texas Department of Insurance came out with that alternative.
So there is a form. It's just they still need to fill it out. We just don't have to have it notarized. That's right.
That's correct.
Okay. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yeah, and I haven't checked in a while to see if it's on zip forms yet. I'm not sure. It wasn't for a while.
I don't know either. I'll check, but I don't know because title told me something we didn't need, and yeah, so I'm confused, but I'll figure it out.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Awesome. Anything else?
I think I probably need to set an appointment to do my listing
Yeah,
agreement with you.
sure.
In Granbury, there's a lot of pieces to it, so
Okay.
it'll be a nightmare. It'll be a problem child, but I'll sell it.
I like that confidence.
Hey, somebody's gonna buy it. You know
Yeah,
what I mean? I might
that's
as well
absolutely
sell it to
right.
them.
That's absolutely right. And if for everyone that has not met Cherokee yet, this is Cherokee. She is out of Granbury, and so if anybody has any business that they would like to refer to her in Granbury or points west, she's your
Like
person.
Stephenville, if they need doors open, things like that. Stephenville, Granbury,
That's awesome.
Toller.
And she's been doing this for a good long time, so you're in good hands. So
And I have one more question. My zip forms, which probably say for the appointment, is still saying my old broker that passed.
okay.
Who do
Yes.
I contact, the association or you?
Yeah, the association will change some of it. You can change some of it too in your profile. But because I did see that you are now with White Rock, it should be picking up on that. So my guess is that it might be fields that you can change, but I would call your contact there that you
Okay,
with. Yep, she'll help you.
I'll get on those. Okay, well, no, I'm trying to go over all these, so I thought, well, I probably better do an appointment to make sure with this one because there's a lot of moving parts.
Yeah, no worries. No worries.
Okay.
I'll be here. All right. Well, guys, thank you so much. Next week is CE credit with Allegiance title. Can't remember the subject, but I'll send out a flyer as always. But if you have any issues with listings or anything else, I'm always here. Just reach out and you guys have a great rest of the week. Enjoy this weather. You take care.